Okay, so this is gonna be way less personal than my usual shtick, and it continues with my rant about tech and older technology and newer technology and so on and so forth. But I want to complain about um, the term e-waste because like with Windows 10 being months away from end of life, I keep hearing a lot of people saying things like, "Oh, this is gonna create a new wave of e-waste. Oh, so much e-waste," and I just look flabbergasted at them. Why? Why is it e-waste? Just because the latest and greatest supposedly doesn't support it? You can do so much more. For example, what I would recommend a lot of people do is, I don't know, as much as I am not a Linux shill by any means, I would say Linux is perfect. Or again, keep using Windows 10. Like I said, I will do for the foreseeable future on my PC, which can handle Windows 11. I do have something that still counts as a high-end PC, even if there are a few better parts nowadays. I would still refer to my PC as high-end, top of the line. The point is, I think people are rushing to call anything that is over a few years old e-waste when it comes to computers. But I'm trying to make this point, right? If you were to call a GameCube or a PS4 or the Switch 1 e-waste, people would give you fucking just death glares. Just death glares. People would be like, what the fuck are you smoking? However, saying a PC from 2014 is e-waste, oh yeah, that's acceptable, that's fine, that's true. Never mind, it can still do a lot of things. I think that the problem is that most people don't know what to do with those computers. And I think that's why the term e-waste comes to mind for computers, but not for consoles. I would even extend it to say this is why phones and computers have the terminology, but you do not see the same kind of treatment towards consoles or any other types of electronics. Like, I don't know, uh, I, I even to an extent, old cameras. Even though I think the reason why it's to a lesser extent than consoles is because most people don't really bother with cameras anymore. They usually just stick to a mobile phone. So cameras, if they had any, tend to rot in like the someone in the house, somewhere in the house. Um, but I believe that e-waste should only apply to hardware that is severely damaged or completely defective. Completely defective meaning not working, and severely damaged is basically the functionality is so iffy it quite literally is not worth it and cannot be repaired. Like an example I can think of is a GPU, right? That it works, but half of the time when you boot up the computer, it doesn't start at all, and it keeps restarting itself, turning off and on and all that, and it kind of like the display just blinks. Yeah, I would call that damaged enough to be seen as waste. But an older computer, why? Like, there's so many uses. You can repurpose an old computer as a server, even as a streaming server, right? Let's say you're like me and you buy Blu-rays or DVDs, right? and you would like to use to stream them over to your TV or other devices with Plex. However, while yes, you can set up a Plex server on your main PC, I don't think you want to keep like a top of the line, power hungry PC on at all times. However, a laptop from like 2012 or whatever, it's decent enough to handle it, and it doesn't consume that much power. So, you could just like chug it somewhere and have it run constantly. Install Linux. You can even a lot of people buy Raspberry Pis so they can run Pi-hole. Pi-hole is pretty much a network-wide ad blocker of sorts, and it's actually pretty easy to set up, and you can make exceptions, make exclusions, and it does a great job. And I would even say is starting to become more and more of a thing to consider as Chrome is slowly starting to make uBlock Origin, as it was unavailable to current day users, and they probably are going to roll out something that turns it off entirely without the ability to turn it back on by the end of the year. My point is, with that, I think for your own sake, and if you care in any capacity about security, you might want to consider that. Either you buy a Raspberry Pi, or I don't know, if you have an old laptop that still kicks, upgrade the dying hard drive to an SSD. Just buy a cheap one. You don't even have to get a big one. Just the 128 gigs is more than enough. But do that and see how it is setting up RetroPie or Plex or anything. Like, what I'm trying to say is, if you have older hardware, instead of just throwing it out, either A, donate it to someone who may not have even that, if it's like decent enough or whatever, and if not, you can purpose it as a single purpose computer. Or what I do with my I have a PC that is a 4th gen i7 based NVIDIA GTX 960, I think, with 16 gigs of RAM. What am I doing with it? I'm just running Windows XP on it. I could run Windows 10. I'm just doing Windows XP because I want to use it for old school gaming. And I do it. And it works just fine. And I think that's a good use of it. You can just use it in the same way you would use a retro console, Or you could even just use it to tinker around. Like, I don't know, you can install Linux and test it out, install older operating systems, whatever you want. Hell, I'm even thinking about buying an old iMac from like 2008, 2009, 2010, around that time, specifically because I'm thinking, what would be cool? Using it as a multimedia device. Because I obviously am not I can't show because I don't have any camera or whatever at my PC. I have an audio setup, right? It's like a CD player with some speakers, pretty decent setup. But I'm thinking about it this way. I have an iMac, speakers hooked up to it. I can rip my CDs, and also I can transfer my iTunes purchases. And not only do I have the same usefulness and the same purpose that I would have used the CD player for, but I also get those sick ass cool visualizers, and I can even just like Potentially in the future, if I want to, I can mod it. Um, increase the RAM, put an SSD maybe, and either update to a later Mac OS, or B, I can still use it for very bare bones browsing. I know I'm not gonna use it for gaming. I'm not gonna use it for anything too complex. But if I find one for like 20-30 bucks, sure, I'll go for it. I'll just pretty much just turn it into a glorified boombox. And I'm fine with that. And I think that's probably like what I'm saying. You have an old laptop laying around and you want something to play music louder than your phone. Just use that. Install something light, again, either Linux or Windows, and install or either go on your browser or install the app for Spotify or Apple Music or Fubar or anything that you're using to play your music, whether streaming or locally. And I would say that old laptop that you've been neglecting for so long might do for a really good music playback machine. Maybe if you have a laptop you don't use but is like still decent enough, and maybe your TV's in the other room, is in another room. Like in my case, my TV is in a different room than my PC. What I could do if I wanted to get into streaming is I could hook up a capture card to output everything onto that laptop, and not even just streaming as in on Twitch or whatever, even in a server. I want to play on my console, like just chill on the bed. I can have that laptop next to me, Discord open, OBS open, and it's all fine and dandy as long as it's like functional enough. What I'm trying to say is, just don't throw away your things without thinking, hey, maybe I might need this. Hey, maybe this isn't trash. Maybe this isn't waste. Because maybe you might want it in the future. Maybe you might need it. You may never know. And yeah, anyway, that's it.